Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that your house is not yours, that every room, every wall, and even the foundation was designed by someone else with the goal of keeping you in a permanent state of alert. You think you're moving freely in these spaces, but the architecture dictates your every step. When the hallway gets narrow, you accelerate. If the ceiling is low, you duck.
The bitter truth is, that's exactly what it looks like in your head.
We spend our lives in the firm conviction that we are the captains of our soul. We believe that our anger, fear, and stress are appropriate responses to a complicated world. But what if I told you that most of what you call your suffering is not your property at all? It is the result of an outdated architecture, a biological and psychological construction built for a world that has not existed for 50,000 years.
Welcome to Level 2 of Psychosophy.
In Level 1, we looked at the surface of your consciousness. Today, we are tearing down the walls. We examine the architecture of your suffering. We'll look at how neuroscience explains the system error in your head and why the ancient Stoics were the first true software engineers of the human mind. We're going to dig deep today. We're talking about the amygdala hijack, about the molecular tyranny of cortisol, and about the Stoic algorithm of the dichotomy. At the end of these 15 minutes, you will no longer blindly leave the remote control for your emotions to the world. You will understand why you are suffering, and you will have the tools to dismantle this architecture stone by stone.
This is not a self-help video. This is a deconstruction of your reality. If you're ready to question the foundation on which your entire emotional life stands, then let's start now.
To understand the architecture of suffering, we need to face the uncomfortable truth. Your brain doesn't want you to be happy. Your brain just wants you to survive. Happiness is a luxury for evolution. Survival is the business.
The evolutionary mismatch. We live in a so-called mismatch environment. This means our biological hardware is optimized for an environment that prioritizes physical hazards. In the savannah, it was essential for survival to assume the worst with every rustle in the bushes. Those who were too relaxed were eaten. The problem? Evolution works slowly, very slowly.
Our environment has changed more radically in the last 200 years than in the previous 2 million years. But our brain? It's still the same as it was 50,000 years ago. We navigate through a world of digital signals, social hierarchies, and abstract deadlines with a navigation system that is actually on the lookout for predators.
The amygdala, the paranoid bouncer.
At the center of this drama is the amygdala. In neuroscience, we call it the core of the limbic system. It is your emotional warning center. When a stimulus arrives, say an email from your boss saying, "We need to talk," that stimulus hits the thalamus first. From there are two paths: the high road to the prefrontal cortex, where logical analysis takes place, and the low road, the express line, directly to the amygdala.
The amygdala is faster, much faster. Before you've even read the second word of the email, the amygdala has already decided, life-threatening. It activates the hypothalamus, which in turn instructs the adrenal glands to release adrenaline and cortisol.
This is the amygdala hijack. At that moment, something catastrophic happens for your quality of life. Your blood is being drawn from your logical thinking brain and pumped into your muscles. Your tunnel vision sets in. You are biologically programmed to either fight, flee, or freeze. While you're sitting at your desk, your body is in a state as if it's about to be mauled.
The molecular architecture of suffering. Cortisol.
This is where it gets interesting from a journalistic point of view. Why do we feel so exhausted afterwards? Why does the stress often lasts for hours? This is due to cortisol. Unlike adrenaline, which fizzles out quickly, cortisol stays in the system for a long time. It's like a viscous, dark fluid that sticks your neural pathways together.
Chronically high cortisol breaks down the hippocampus, the area responsible for memory and learning, and enlarges the amygdala. This is the architecture of suffering in its purest form. The more stress you have, the more sensitive your stress center becomes, and the weaker your logic center becomes. Your brain is literally building a highway for suffering and a dirt road for rest.
We do not suffer from real threats today. We suffer from an overreaction of our own hardware to harmless symbols. We treat every rudeness, every delay, and every dislike as an attack on our existence. This is the first layer of architecture, a biological prison built from outdated reflexes.
If biology is the problem, where do we find the update? The answer lies 2,300 years in the past, in the porticos of Athens and the palaces of Rome. The Stoics were the first to understand that there is a space between the allure of the world and the reaction of man. And in this space, it is decided whether you are a slave or a free person.
Epictetus and the freedom of judgment.
Epictetus, the man who started as a slave and ended up as one of the world's greatest teachers, left us the foundation of psychological hacking. It's not the things that worry us, but our opinions about things.
Let's dissect this journalistically. The architecture of your suffering is not built by events. It is built by your judgments. You are stuck in a traffic jam. That's the fact. The fact is value neutral. It is only your judgment, this is a waste of time, the others are incapable, I will get in trouble, that creates suffering. Without the verdict, the only thing that remains is a stationary car.
The Stoic learns the art of prohairesis, the conscious moral decision. He realizes that he cannot control the outside world, but he has absolute sovereignty over his assent to a thought. The amygdala may scream danger, but the Stoic has veto power. He says, I see that you want to scare me, but I don't recognize this stimulus as a threat.
The dichotomy of control, the binary code of peace. The most important technique of Stoic architecture is the radical separation of the world into two folders. Folder 1, the uncontrollable. This is where everything we normally consider important, the weather, the economy, other people's opinions of us, the past, the future, even the health of our own bodies. The Stoic calls these things adiaphora, indifferent things. Why? Because they are not in our power. If you tie your luck to folder 1, you build on sand. He is a hostage of fate. Folder 2, the controllable. This folder is tiny, but it is the seat of your power. Here are only your own thoughts, your intentions, and your actions in the here and now. Suffering always arises when we try to control things from folder 1. We waste all our neural energy, all our life force, bending the outside world to please us. The Stoic, on the other hand, radically withdraws his energy. He says, I'm doing my best, folder 2, but I don't care about the result, folder 1. This is not a lack of interest. It is psychological self-protection. If you only value what you can control yourself, nothing and no one in the world can hurt you. You tear down the walls of fear by depriving fate of permission to decide on your well-being. The realization is the first step, but how do we rebuild the architecture in concrete terms? How do we train the brain so that the dirt road to rest becomes a highway? We need protocols. Protocol 1, the 90-second boundary layer. Neuroscientist Jill Bolte Taylor has shown in her studies that an emotion works like a wave. When a stimulus triggers the amygdala, it takes exactly 90 seconds for the chemical component to be broken down. Anything beyond these 90 seconds is self-induced suffering.
If you're still angry after an hour, it's because you're telling the story in your head over and over again. You actively maintain the architecture of suffering.
The hack: when the trigger comes, tell yourself 90 seconds of chemistry. Don't act, don't talk. Just watch the wave roll through your body. After 90 seconds, the biology is over. What comes after that is your decision. Protocol 2, Premeditatio Malorum, Desensitization.
We often suffer from the shock of the unexpected. The architecture of our psyche is designed for comfort, and if something breaks, the whole house collapses. The Stoics used the anticipation of evil.
The hack. Sit down for 2 minutes in the morning. Imagine what could go wrong today. Not with fear, but with clinical distance. Someone will insult you. You will lose an important file. Someone you like will disappoint you. Why do we do this? To train the amygdala. When the catastrophe occurs, it is no longer a shock. It is a familiar scenario. You have already defused the amygdala hijack in advance. You have hardened the architecture of your mind against shocks. Protocol 3. The cognitive reframing question.
In Level 2, we use a journalistic tool for our own minds, the questioning of the witness. Every time you notice stress coming up, ask yourself, is this part of me?
By that you mean, does this fall into folder 1 or folder 2? If the answer is folder 2, then every second of trouble is a waste of your lifetime.
Actively tell yourself, I don't have a budget set aside in my head for this event. We only have a limited amount of neural energy per day. Why would you spend it on someone who cut you off in traffic? This is emotional insolvency. Keep your energy for the things that really matter.
Let's get to the heart of the matter. The architecture of your suffering is comfortable. It's easy to be a victim. It's easy to say, I'm stressed because my job is so hard. I'm unhappy because my relationship is difficult. I'm angry because politics is failing.
These sentences give us short-term relief because they relieve us of responsibility, but they are the surest path to insignificance. As long as you believe that your inner state is a consequence of the outer world, you are nothing more than a leaf in the wind. You have no autonomy. You have no power.
Stoicism and modern psychology demand something radical from you, taking total responsibility for your reactions.
That is the price of freedom. You have to accept that no one can make you angry except yourself. No one can insult you unless you give them permission to do so. The architecture of your suffering is not built by others. It is approved by you.
The destination, ataraxia. The goal of the Stoics was ataraxia, the imperturbability of the soul. Imagine you are like a rock in the sea. The waves crash against you, the storm whips at you, but you stand still. Not because you ignore the storm, but because you know that you are not the sea. You are the rock.
Level 2 is all about finding that rock inside you. It is a matter of recognizing the neurobiological automatisms and replacing them with conscious, rational judgments. You're not your stress. You are not your fear. You are the entity that observes these things.
Once you have taken this perspective, everything changes. The traffic jam becomes a meditation exercise. The rude email becomes a training of your patience. Failure becomes a lesson in humility. The world out there can't change, but your architecture has changed. And with that, everything has changed.
Reflection Island. Take a deep breath. Feel the weight of your responsibility, but also feel the incredible freedom that lies in it. You are the architect. You have achieved a lot today. You've understood the biological roots of your stress. You've learned the Stoic dichotomy of control. You now have the blueprint in your hand to dismantle the architecture of your suffering, brick by brick. You are no longer a victim. You are the architect of your reaction.
But we have to be honest, this was still the light part of the trip. We talked about reason, logic, and conscious control. But we both know that there are parts of you that don't stick to folder 1 and folder 2, parts that whisper at night, share things that you regret the next day. We have stabilized the foundation, but we have not yet entered the basement.
In Level 3, we leave the safe shore of Stoic logic. We go where it is really dark. We are talking about what Carl Jung called the shadow. We're going to look at why you sabotage yourself, why you hate some people abysmally. Spoiler, it has more to do with you than with them. And how to integrate your dark twin,
instead of running away from it.
Are you ready to see your true colors without the mask of reason?
Subscribe to Psychosophy to not miss the transition to level 3. Write me now in the comments, what was the last event in which your amygdala hijack took control? Let's deconstruct this architecture together.
See you in the depths. See you in level 3.